How's it going, guys? Mike Kellum here with another video, and in this video I want to talk about 20 things that you must have before considering living in an RV full-time. Now obviously you don't have to buy everything in this video, but take it from someone who's been doing this for a year, you want everything in this video. Otherwise you're gonna have a very bad time living in an RV. Before we get started, I just want to say, I'm not sponsored in this video and nobody's paying me to make it. I make these videos completely in my free time, and I know I'm at work right now, but they're not even paying me to do it. I'm on my lunch break. All I ask is if you really like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I have a lot of information to give out there, and I'm just starting out on YouTube. So when you like my video and subscribe to my channel, it's completely free to you. It helps me out tremendously and keeps videos like this coming out. The other thing I want to throw in there is everything that I talk about in this video, I'm going to compile into a shopping list on Amazon. If you look in the description below, I'll have a link to that shopping list. I'm going to have a few different shopping lists. That way you can kind of pick and choose everything that you need if you already have certain things. But the most important part of that is if you use the links that I provide in the description, I'll get a small cut from Amazon for that. So you'll be supporting my YouTube channel and enabling me to make more videos, and it won't cost you anything extra. Enough of that, let's just get right into the video. I have some notes here because I have a lot of stuff that I want to talk about, so if I'm glancing off the screen, that's why. So first of all, we're going to talk about the electrical side of it. With the shopping list for this particular category, I'm going to give you two options. One is a 50 amp option and one is a 30 amp option. The way that you can tell if your RV is 50 amps or 30 amps is if you look at the shore power plug, if you look on the end of it where it plugs into the wall, if it has 3 prongs, that's a 30 amp plug, and if it has 4 prongs, that's a 50 amp plug. I'll leave a shopping list for both of those options down below. The first one I want to talk about is dog bone adapters. What they do is they take certain plug types and adapt it to your plug type. If you have a 30 amp connection on your camper, you're going to want a 50 amp to 30 amp adapter, and a 30 amp to 15 amp adapter. If you have a 50 amp RV, you want a 30 amp to 50 amp adapter, as well as a 15 to 30 amp adapter, or if you can find one, a 15 to 50 amp adapter. Reason for this is every campsite has something different. Some of them only have a 30 amp connection, some of them only have a 50 amp connection, and sometimes they don't even have a connection at all except for just a little 15 amp connection, or if your camper is in storage, you want to be able to plug it into a 15 amp connection just to trickle charge those batteries. When using a dog bone though, you want to stay under the amperage of the source power. So if your RV is plugged into a 15 amp just standard wall outlet, you want to make sure that you don't exceed 15 amps. That means you can run one air conditioner or the microwave, but not anything at the same time. Well, I might be getting kicked out here. Oh, gotcha.
My apologies.
Yeah, no worries, man, you're good. The next thing you're gonna want is a surge protector. Electrical systems in RVs are very, very sensitive, and even the slightest little surge in power can knock a whole lot of stuff out. The biggest cause of this is if you're at a campground and there's a whole bunch of campers all connected to the same power source. Say, for example, it's a hot summer day and everyone's running their air conditioner. If something small happens, like a breaker flips, suddenly a huge load is going to be dropped off that electrical system and it's going to cause a spike, which could damage your equipment. So a surge protector, it's technically optional, but I really think it'd be a bad idea to go without one. Something that costs you just short of $100 can save you thousands of dollars in damages. And even if it just saves you one time, it's 100% worth it. Another one is an extension cord. You're going to want an extension cord for those times where you have to park in kind of a weird way, or even if you're just boondocking and you have to stretch along a long distance. So say for example you're doing what I'm doing. I'm just parked in some farmer's field, but when we had that terrible snowstorm and I ran out of electricity, I ran my extension cord all the way up to their house and I was able to run a space heater. Extension cords are very, very helpful, and you will definitely be using it a lot. The next one is fuses. It's cheap to get a huge variety pack of fuses. It's always just a good idea to have them on hand because if you blow a fuse and suddenly you don't have power to half of your RV, that can make camping or full-time living kind of not a lot of fun if you don't have a fuse to just pop right back in there. Alrighty, the next category we're going to talk about is the water systems. So this is going to be the freshwater system as well as the wastewater systems. The first one is a water filter. Now, you want to replace your water filter every 3 to 6 months depending on how much you're going to use it. If you're living in your camper, I would definitely advise 3 months, but if you're just going to be camping, 6 months is going to be totally fine. There's a lot of campgrounds out there with a water source that's just not very clean, and a lot of them you'll get like this metallic taste or plastic taste or something like that. Having a water filter will filter out anything that's kind of not straight with the water and make it safe for drinking. And even if you don't plan to drink the water that comes out of the faucet in your RV, do you really want to be taking a shower in water that smells like that? The next one is a water pressure regulator. RVs are really only rated for about 40 pounds of water pressure, but depending on where you're at, the water pressure could be something completely different. A lot of people who are in the world of RVing will have problems with water lines leaking or bursting. and they just complain about how terrible it is that these water lines break so easily. But the thing is, it's because they're only rated for 40 pounds of pressure. So if you hook up a water faucet and it's got 60 pounds of pressure at the faucet, yeah, you're definitely going to have some water problems. Plus, a water pressure regulator doesn't cost more than $10, so you should get one. Another one is hoses. So I personally have separate hoses for my freshwater and for my black water flush. I know technically the black water flush, you just kind of screw it into the side and it doesn't really touch anything disgusting, but it just doesn't seem right to me to have one hose for the black tank flush as well as the freshwater. That just doesn't sit right with me, so I personally have two hoses. Of course, that's up to you whether you want to do that or not, but I highly recommend getting two separate hoses for your black tank and your freshwater. Plus, when you go to a dump station and you hook up your hose up to that faucet, you don't know what people have done with that. And a lot of people will stick their sewer hose right up to the faucet and kind of swirl it around to clean it out. Do you really want to connect your freshwater hose to that and then connect it to another freshwater source down the road and then drink from that? That's kind of gross. The next one is a sewer hose. I personally use a Rhinoflex sewer hose, but you can just use any other sewer hose and be totally fine. The only reason I use Rhinoflex is just because of how tough it is. The next one is black tank treatment. The black tank treatments will keep your black tank from smelling too bad, and it'll also kind of help liquefy everything so that when you go to empty the tanks, nothing gets clogged in the outlet. If you get something clogged in the outlet, that is a terrible experience and it's not fun to deal with. And the last one for this category is a sewer hose support. If you're planning to stay at a campground and just have your sewer hose hooked up all the time, what this will do is it'll set up your sewer hose so that it's constantly going in a downhill. That way everything drains out of the hose properly and you don't have to worry about stuff getting stuck in there and sort of solidifying. Alrighty, we'll move on to the next section now, and this is going to be tools that I would recommend having. Wheel chocks are so important to the RV life. You place the wheel chocks in front and behind your wheel, or if you're on an angle, then you just place it on whatever side the hill is going down. That way your camper won't roll away on you. The next one is duct tape. Duct tape is probably the most important tool you can take with you in an RV. Say for example, you wake up one day and you have water dripping on your head and you realize there's a leak in your roof somewhere. If you have duct tape, you can just quickly fix that while you're out on the road. Obviously it's not a permanent fix for that, but it'll at least keep it nice and sealed until you can get it back and then get it repaired. Or say for example, a piece of your wall is coming off. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos where people, do something and damage the side of their wall and it just peels apart, or their wall just peels apart just because. Again, not a permanent fix, but it could be enough to get you home. There's so many cases where duct tape would help. Those are just two of them, but trust me, there's hundreds of reasons why you might want duct tape. The next one is a tire iron designed for RVs. Now I couldn't find any tire irons on Amazon, but if you go to your local camping store, you should be able to pick one up, no problem. Nobody realizes that lug sizes are very different on RVs than they are on cars. So the wrench that you have for your car is almost certainly not going to work on your RV. And anyone who's been doing this for any amount of time knows that tire blowouts can and do happen actually pretty frequently. So you want to make sure you're prepared for something like that so you can swap it out for your spare. The next one is Fix-A-Flat. Now you want to get the can of Fix-A-Flat for extra large tires. This way, say for example you're going into a campsite and your wheel just runs over a nail or something like that. Something not super significant. You don't have to pull out the whole spare tire and get everything jacked up and everything like that. You just plug in the Fix-A-Flat, pull down on the trigger, and your tire's sealed at least enough to get into town. It's also pretty common that your spare tire is not in a good condition. A lot of times the spare tire's just been sitting in the back rotting for years. So if you get a little pinhole and ultimately you do want to put the spare tire on, but it's just in really crappy condition, that's where Fix-A-Flat can save you. Plus it'll air up your tires about 15 to 20 psi, which isn't a whole lot, but that's why I added onto this list a mini air compressor. For about $100, you can get a little air compressor that will fill up an RV tire. So once you've used the Fix-A-Flat, or if you have another tire patching strategy, you can just hook up that little air compressor, fill it right up, and you're good to go. The next must-have is a TPMS sensor. I would definitely recommend getting a wireless TPMS system. The reason for this is, with the RVing industry, blowouts happen frequently. And the number one cause of them is the tire goes flat or you run over something and you don't realize it because the flat tire is on the vehicle that you're towing behind you, so you don't really notice anything while you're driving. But because the tire's flat, it's heating up, there's a lot more friction, and eventually it just blows up. So if you have a TPMS sensor that you have plugged into those tires, you can keep an eye on the tire pressure or even set an alert if your TPMS system allows that. And if one of your tires starts to get low, you can pull over and figure out why. Doing that, you just have to fix a little pinhole or whatever instead of having to replace the whole tire. Not only will it save you some money by possibly salvaging your tire, but it could also be a huge safety thing. If your tire blows out, you're not going to have a lot of control over the situation, and there's a high chance of crashing or even flipping it. But if you just have a TPMS system that's telling you the tire pressure and alerting you when something gets a little low, you can avoid that entire situation and just pull over real quick. The next one, and one of the most important ones in my opinion, is a fire extinguisher. Now, some RVs do come with a fire extinguisher, so if yours does, don't worry about it. But with all the ignition sources in an RV, like the refrigerator, the furnace, even just the amount of wiring that goes into these things, you want to make sure you have a fire extinguisher in case something happens and your rig catches on fire. Another thing you'll want is a toolkit. Now, just a mechanic's toolkit will do you just fine, but if something falls apart while you're on a camping trip or while you're out and about, not near anything, having a toolkit can be super helpful. You can just screw it back in or unbolt it and replace it, or whatever the case may be. A toolkit has proven to be very helpful to me at least once a month. So a toolkit is something that I would not go without. And the last thing on my list for today is going to be jumper cables. If you get out there and you're stuck in the middle of nowhere and turn the key and nothing happens, you can jumpstart your truck from the camper using the camper's battery. Now, I wouldn't do that a whole lot, but in a pinch you can definitely do it. Or if you have a drivable like a Class A or a Class C, you can flag someone down and get a jump start from them. Well, anyway, that's it for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and over here are going to be some of my other videos. Definitely check them out. Like I said, I have a lot of really cool information to share with you. Safe travels, everybody, and we'll see you in the next video.